Skip it up and that up. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is episode 8 of the Rich and Red podcast. Man, episode 8. It's a little late because, I had scheduling issues, and if I look like hell right now, it's because I should. But anyway, well, that's all we'll say. If I look like hell right now, I have been doing a bunch of ungodly things for the past 7 to 8 days. But I always want to talk about the Patreon that we have for the Rich and Red podcast. For $1 a month, it gives you access to 2 things. You get access to the video version of the podcast a week early. And on top of it, you get a downloadable high quality MP3. I will talk about one thing real quick. I know MP3s are officially dead by the foundation that created them. So we may be switching over to like a format like FLAC or something like that. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, you'll get a high quality downloadable format of the show, and you get access to the video version of it too. So you can see me react and do dumbass things and look like hell right now. My beard, I look like a nomad. So there you go.
You don't look bad to me.
Well, it's so funny.
I spent the weekend with a bunch of bikers and tank aficionados. I actually got to see live tank demonstrations on the weekend. And the funniest part about it, World of Tanks.
I look well kept to you right now then.
Yeah, exactly. You're totally on my level right now. One of the funniest things was World of Tanks did an event as part of the sponsorship of it, where they did an on-site tournament, and the winners got to gun a couple of old refurbished Leopard tanks as part of the opening of this tank museum out in Oshawa. And if you ever wanted a live demonstration of how being really good at a video game does not have any correlation to real life proficiency with weapons or tendencies toward violence, it was so bad. The announcer was apologizing for the delay. It was just...
Wow.
These tanks were moving like shepherd dances in Mass Effect. It took them forever to even fire the first shot. And I mean, the other thing that games don't prepare you for is the feeling in your chest of the explosions. The first two or three.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the first 2 or 3 actually make you nauseous until you acclimate, and then you're kind of used to it. But one thing they didn't sell was earplugs. My ears were hurting 2 days later. Those things are
loud as shit.
Wow. Oh, and they hit you. You feel it before you hear it. And so like right here, like the whole fascial layer just tensed up and then relaxed once you took a few more kind of concussive blasts. But holy crap, very, very educational in that regard. Those things, but no wonder my stepdad, who served in Korea, is deaf now. He was in one of these things. It was educational. But they're
loud and you feel the shockwave. And if anyone out there thinks that video games prepare you for actual combat in any way, unless it is a simulation designed to actually emulate real life combat, you're an idiot.
Yeah, okay? and even the simulations, it is not the same. I mean, the way some of them, depending on the angle of the way these things fire, you felt it from the opposite side before it wrapped around and hit you forward. It was a really good learning experience, because to feel that's something games cannot provide. Is the actual physical stress on the body from being around explosions. It's and you saw after every round, you saw this max exodus of people leaving because they could not take it anymore. It was just awesome. It was too close. They weren't going to deal with it anymore. It was something. It was a rush, but holy crap, it was something.
That's awesome. But yeah, you were around a bunch of people with much larger unkempt beards than me.
Oh yeah, it was down to here. I don't know what the association between bikers and armored artillery is, but there is definitely one. I don't know if they just became bike aficionados after they got out of the military or something like that. But there were a lot of bike. And my mother's like, "What does the 21 in a spade mean?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it, Mom. It is not relevant to your experience."
I don't know what that means either. That's interesting.
It's a local biker Crest.
Okay.
It's one of them. We have a place called Port Dover up in Ontario, and it's a Friday the 13th destination. Whenever it's Friday the 13th, a bunch of bikers come from all over Ontario and the northern US, probably some up from your neck of the woods, but they go to this place called Port Dover for Friday the 13th. And you see them all along the freeways and all that stuff. And they there's some drugs and there's some this and there's some that and there's some petty issues. They don't tend to cause trouble for this. They actually do a lot of charity work up here. Even the bikers are nice in Canada because they busted up a lot of the really bad biker gangs about, 15 years ago now. And it's not that there isn't problems. I don't want to sugarcoat it. But yeah, most bikers are very nice people up here.
Not that they are down here, but there's definitely more attention down here, but that's just kind of the whole political landscape in the States right now. But speaking of which, so Far Cry 5. Liana actually has interesting information on this. I'll leave it at that, which I didn't know she did. I just picked this story. I'm like, hey, Liana, we're going to talk about this because I think it's ridiculous and I think people are overreacting, shockingly, the internet.
Yeah, it was so funny because you linked me to that just as I was finishing up one of the conversations. I'm like, funny you mentioned this. I got some stuff. Yeah, we should probably background. Do you want to start with the marketing or do you want to start with the petition?
Well, I'll start. I literally just today, because like I said, I've been minus doing some live streaming on and off for like the past week. I've been out of commission because I've been doing ungodly things. I just saw today the trailer for Far Cry 5. I got to admit, I think it looks awesome. I don't know. I think it looks cool.
Awesome, right?
I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what game engine they're using, if it's the same one from 4 or Primal, but it looks really good.
It's an upgrade. Like they refine it a little bit with each one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an upgrade. I love the whole premise of it possibly being a religious cult because I don't have a sensitive ass. And I just think it's cool. I think it's a different direction for Far Cry 2 from like 4 and Primal. They needed to do something different from what they did with the past few. And Primal was definitely the weakest link, in my opinion. I ended up hating it. The first time I played Primal, I hated it. Second time, it's okay. Probably will never touch it again, but that's a different story.
I really liked it, but I suspect I liked it for although some people didn't. It is a real deviation from the formula. And I like that about Far Cry, that the numbered games are, I don't want to say predictable, because everyone's a very different beast for me. My heart is still with Far Cry 3 in terms of games, but like Blood Dragon and Primal, they did some neat stuff with the formula. The fact that they were able... I love
Blood Dragon, even though it's supposed to be a spin-off of 3, I think may be my favorite one, but that's a different story.
Because it's just so bizarre, right?
It is. It's so 80s. They nailed the 80s thing so perfect with that.
And I love that, Far Cry games have that amazing open world gameplay. They always have some sort of interaction with the natural environment. And every game does that differently. And then there's the narco state issue, which was the thing I had the hardest time adapting to. The fact that drug use is an integral part of Far Cry games. And I thought it was interesting. I'm like, how are they going to do that in 10,000 BCE? They managed to do it. They still had all the components. They still had all those acid trips and everything like that. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting to bring that kind of failed state formula to Montana. I'm really interested to see how they do that. And I'm interested to see what they do with these what they say are going to be more human feeling NPCs, that they're not just going to be quest givers anymore. They're going to have opinions about things. There's some really great vignettes.
That's actually cool, because that was probably my biggest issue with Far Cry. Even though I liked the games, I wasn't in love because sometimes it got too fetch questy. So if they make a way to make it less fetch questy, then I'll be even more on board. And I already like the series. If they fix that, then I'll probably end up becoming a huge fan.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be really, really excited about. But of course, when you drop your marketing, when your announcement image is a riff on The Last Supper, people are going to lose their shit, right? And they had to know that. Yeah, they had to know that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Before we get into, because I have a lot to say, and I know Liana has probably even a shit more to say about this. I'm going to get into read you the Gamers United petition, which...
Oh, you're going to read the whole thing?
Is it? It's not that long. I saw it before. Oh.
It's pretty long. It's a lol fest. I'm all good for reading it. It's just
I read it
guys.
before. I read it before. It's maybe because I was reading it, not reading it out loud. It felt not as bad. So anyway,
there's so many quotable moments.
So get your beer and grab a thing of chips, and we'll go through this. So we'll have a link.
Shots.
Or shots too. I'll have a link in the description, so if you want to check it out. So, this is the petition I'm reading right from it. Enough is enough, Ubisoft. We sat through your multicultural lectures and your preachy games aimed at degenerates and.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, man.
Crack me up.
I'm getting. I read the word. I can't say it.
Misgenitors.
Misgenitors. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, all right. Here, slap it again. Enough is enough, Ubisoft. We've sat through your multicultural lectures, your preachy games aimed at degenerates and misgenitors. We've tolerated it in the name of gameplay design and innovation, but no more. Far Cry 5 is an insult to your fan base, the Americans who make up the majority of your customers, and it's time you woke up to the fact, change this or cancel it. Us gamers have had to endure a lot of crap over the last years. Targeted harassment by the mainstream press through Gamergate, the terrible launch and outright lies of highly anticipated video games. They are right about that.
Anticipated. It's not anticipated. It's anticipated.
My brain auto-corrected it.
Yeah.
The outright lies of highly anticipated. Wonderful typo there. The outright censorship, but they are right about them hyping up games, make them look a lot better than they come out. They don't look as good. They are right about that. The outright censorship of art through localization policies, the continued rejection of romantic partners when they find out our hobby. God. Yeah, this is so. If you don't think this is a troll, if you don't think this is a troll petition, slap yourself. The appropriation of our culture by so-called gamers on Twitter, no more. It's time to draw a line in the sand. We, the American gamers that make up a majority of your user base, demand to. God, if they are not trying to, if the troll who made this is not going on the whole Trump America thing right now, I don't know what the hell is. Demand you to cancel this game or alter it to be less offensive to your main player base. In these times, you must understand that there might be some violent repercussions. Oh, God. If you intend to follow through with your pointless criticism. I don't agree with that because even though I'm pretty much positive this is a troll petition, you adding those little things like violent repercussions can start to get dangerous because there are probably simple people signing this thing who probably are about to lose their minds.
They misspelled repercussions.
See, I'm auto-correcting it in my brain, so I'm not seeing it, which is funny.
Like this, I agree with you. That line goes too far, but this thing is a work of art.
Yes.
It like is a total top tech territory right here.
It is a total troll work of art. And like I said, I'm sure that people signing this, because it's at 804 supporters as of us doing this podcast, I'm sure a lot of them actually agree with it and believe it, unless there's something on 4chan right now that everyone's getting together to make it seem like the this petition actually has some legs to it. But anyway.
My favorite part is coming up in the next bullet point paragraph. Okay. This is where I'm like, this has got to be a troll.
So here are the following suggestions to make your game right. Change the villains. It's not so hard, really. Just change the villains to something more realistic. Oh, God, they're doing it. Islam is on the rise in America. They went there, as is the violence of inner city gangs. Are you scared to do so? Seriously? They've made plenty of games involving both of them. In the words of Voltaire, to learn who rules you, simply find out who's not being criticized.
Yes, that well-known philosopher, Voltaire.
Oh, God.
It's a mashup between Voltaire and Baltair from Final Fantasy. Like, there is no way that is not a deliberate mistake.
Well, the troll who did this is smart. He's trying to get people to trip up and see who's actually... He's basically leaving peppering throughout this whole thing. That's why I wanted to read it, to let you know that I'm a troll, and if you believe this, you're a fucking idiot. Okay.
And if you search that quote, which is not what Voltaire said, all you get is press stories on this petition. This is brilliant.
And people totally, and that's, we're going to talk about that in a minute, how much is being covered. Alter the villains. Even if you insist on making the villains American Christians, consider mixing the races up a bit to not target the white people exclusively. Even if there was a religious cult, let's keep it real, most of the people would be white. There, I said it. I'm sure that people will flip out that I said that, but it's true. There are plenty of nationalists of every stripe and every race and creed. Yes, that is true too. Okay, there's extremists in every single religion, in every single race, and everything. There's extremists in different genders too.
But there's a black guy with a handgun in a hollowed out Bible in one of the Far Cry trailers, so that's actually inaccurate. He's one of the resistance, but they're all black people.
I watched that whole long where they had multiple trailers put together, and you're right about that. Yeah. But, people will, the people who are actually offended by it, not this troll, obviously, who actually really are buying into this, they'll gloss over that because they're idiots. There's no reason a protectionist nationalist movement would be all one race. Why stop being politically correct here? Alter the plot. It's obvious, even though the person probably doesn't even know the full plot. Alter the plot. It's obvious that you continue to insist on using these characters. However, with few artistic tweaks, you can save the concept entirely. Have the villains simply be misguided patriots forced into making their own nation versus the will of an oppressive over-government construed of all the people they turned their wrath against in their immediate surroundings. Their brutal physical and sexual violence towards their oppressors will then be explained as a reaction to harsh government policies and taxation to show that both sides are wrong.
I love the drop into social justice speak there. That was elegant.
Yes.
Elegant, so beautiful, well done. Someone said, do you think a member of the Games Press did this to troll? I said, no, it's too well written.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. They're too busy eating this up right now to get as many clicks on their page as they can. This final bullet point here: change the setting, but only for certain markets. Yeah, they're going to remake the fucking game for certain markets. Look, I get the anti-American.
This is amazing, though. Yeah, go ahead.
Look, I get the anti-Americanism plays in France, telling you what to give up on potential profits due to complaints. Wouldn't want to be thought as one of those hypocrite feminists, right?
Oh.
But for America, nice they threw that in there, or she, you never know. But for America right now, anti-Americanism is out. You got to play your market. Change the setting to Canada for America. This way you don't turn away potential players due to offensiveness. Just trying to help you make more money. Follow one or more of these, and this game will be saved from PC hell and multicultural development. We Americans have so few games to call our own, and we're tired of losing them to multicultural bullshit. Well, there actually is some grain of truth in that.
But I love the suggestion to move the game to Canada. This is artful satire about the dumpster fire that is discussions of anything like this in video games. Well done, whoever wrote this.
Yeah, like I said, they pepper it throughout to make you kind of, if you actually pay attention, you realize that it is a troll and isn't truthful. But I'm sure people are eating this. The Games Press is definitely eating this up right now.
Well, and then people are probably signing it to participate in the troll.
Yes, like I said to you, this is probably some inner workings on 4chan or something like that. That they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to make a whole bunch of different accounts and make it seem like this petition's actually relevant, of course. Or there is actually dumbasses, just to be out there that are actually believing all this bullshit and they're signing it. One of the two.
Yeah, I think they're just doing it the same way, same reason people voted various ways in various elections. It's a fuck the man thing. And if you look at the updates, they're just adding the tweets with, LMFAO, is this a joke? Guys, I laughed so hard I almost threw up. People are getting, and then
the
of
smart
course
people are understanding that this is not real. Yeah,
there's plenty of people saying at Voltaire, they're picking up on all the things.
I'm looking at them right now.
People are getting the joke for the most part. The usual suspects are the ones that aren't getting the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the joke, and then the comments, like the most recent comment is, I'm a delicate little flower who is okay with shooting brown people, foreigners, and liberals who work the evil corporations, but you, Ubisoft, have gone too far, People are basically signing the petition in character.
Yes.
It's really funny. Hey guys, I'm just here for the scene. This is prostate orgasms make my feminine dick hard. Like that was a comment.
What the hell is it? I think I'm looking at you. Hey guys, I'm here for the scene. Yeah, it's amazing that it's interesting. Thank God a lot of people are getting it, because if people didn't, that'd be frightening, to be quite honest with you. So
yeah.
Now
it's funny.
You have some interesting information on this whole thing, but I'll let you just take the.
Yeah.
I'll pass the baton on to you from here, because I don't want to put any words in your mouth, because I know it's kind of like sensitive area. So
well, I'll try to be as quick as possible without burning sources. I mean, the big thing right now.
So I'm just going to shut up and let you talk.
Yeah, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand about actual journalism, actually investigative journalism, and actually cultivating sources in games. People won't go on the record, and I think it is more important to actually get the information out, because I know it's accurate. People can do with it what they want, but sometimes if you insist on attaching a name to the source, you lose the source. And I know there's a lot of outcry right now about leaks and all that stuff. But in this case, I actually had some conversations with some people just to try to soothe nerves, to try to get some facts, because we've just spent all the time laughing at this fairly obvious troll. I want to just let people know kind of what I've heard, some insider information about what's going on. One is, 4chan probably up and ran with this because it's hilarious, but nobody actually knows where this came from. This is not, Gamergate got, game dropped or gate dropped or whatever they want to call it, but it didn't originate with Gamergate. Quite a few people messaged me to say, absolutely, this was not us. So let's not go crazy on that one there. They were as caught by this as anybody. And the other thing is, I talked to a source inside Ubisoft that said, the way it came up was, they're like, this is ridiculous. We found out about this the same time everybody else did. But I said, my favorite part of the whole trailer was the bear chasing the redneck with a shotgun, where he's like, I'm a bear, you want to go? Like, that's my favorite part. That is more the spirit of the game, according to this source, than the heavily political marketing. There's, Far Cry games, traditionally, their marketing focuses on the villain. The big reveal, I just did a bull tear. Villain, not villain. The marketing traditionally is the villain reveal. So, in 3, it was Vus. In 4, it was Pagan Min. In Far Cry Primal, it was the fucking tiger. The first kind of antagonist in Far Cry Primal. They continued it. It's the first villain. But this is the villain reveal. But it is not just good people against Christians. It's not that. It's a specific cult. It's a Far Cry game. And they actually express concern that people are going to feel so misled by the outrage that when they get a game that's just fun and explosions, they're going to be disappointed. So that's why I felt the need to kind of talk about that concern, because that to me indicates that, no, this is the sort of Far Cry game we all know and love if we're fans of the series. They are tweaking the formula. They are not making a radical departure into domestic political commentary.
No, it's a Far Cry game. They're not doing that. Yeah. I already assumed that to begin with. I just knew, because of the premise, that people were going to lose their minds. And what's funny is, I don't think anyone's really actually losing their mind. It's just that news articles are running with it, because it's just something. Hey, Far Cry 5 might tackle religious and cultism and all that crap. Yeah, let's clicks. You know what I mean?
Well, this is the interesting thing, that people go, I don't think it's real, but then they get a certain number of impressions. They know this with fake news, and I think we can effectively call this fake news at this point. This whole petition thing, that. Exposure to fake news, the more you are exposed, the more you start believing the fake news despite despite yourself. And that's why I wanted to do a little bit of sort of, quote unquote, real reporting here, because as much as we can laugh at it, I don't want that message embedding, and I don't want people being afraid because, like you rightly said, some pretty high profile franchises have kind of shit the bed of late. And so I think people have the right to kind of be concerned, and I think we shouldn't give up our right to be excited about games that look really freaking awesome because people decide to be stupid. And I think this is a game based on the consistency but based on the consistency of the Far Cry franchise to this point. Because like you said, your least favorite game is still okay. I think we can safely get excited about this one because it looks like it's going to be cool. I'm kind of interested in seeing a villain with a man bun. If you look really closely at the kind of like cult leader, he's got half a man bun when he's preaching. He's put his hair back. Yeah, it's the scene where he's in the church and they pan out. You can just see the back of his head. But it looks really interesting to me. I mean, those resistance profiles and everything like that, very, very compelling. I like the character setup. I like because they're all rednecks, right? The woman in the bars are redneck. The guy with the crop duster plane is full on redneck, and the guy, the black preacher seems to be, it's almost like an excoriation of Obama in some ways. Like if you want to go deep on it, the fact that all he had was words. And he says, all I had was, and then he walks out with this shotgun with a buckshot church, shot up. There's blood on the walls and all this stuff. There's no way to look at that and not go, fuck yeah. Like it's like an old Desperado type Western setup, like those old, blanking on his name now. The guy who made Spy Kids and Grindhouse, Robert Rodriguez. It's like an early Robert Rodriguez film in a lot of ways. And that's how I'm looking at it going, this is cool. And if you've ever been to those small towns in America, they are very isolated. There is this beauty and tension at the same time. I mean, they feel like places time forgot.
Yes, they do. I've been to them.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing America treated as this far-flung place, because rural America is a very different place from the cities that most of us live in.
So different. You can even go to upstate New York and it's like that. You go upstate past Albany and it's like its own world.
You can drive 3 blocks right along the Canadian border and it's a completely different place. Some of those towns are super like picturesque and others look like a bomb hit them. It all depends on how heavily they were hit by the exodus in manufacturing and the recession. But some parts of upstate New York are beautiful because they're historical societies and everything like that. Others are, am I in Detroit? It is very different. And so I kind of I admit I'd love to see a Far Cry game in Canada. That made me laugh because there are parts of this country that you could have a Sasquatch there and no one would find it. It's just the trees are so tightly packed and it's so sparsely popular. There's no population out there. It's just unchecked boreal forest. And that'd be cool, but I don't think enough people are aware of that. People were vaguely aware of the narco states that were created in countries affected by the World Bank. That was Far Cry 3. People are aware of some of the issues in Nepal and places like that where they're losing their culture because of occupation, for lack of a better word, from other governments. People are aware of that. Canada's not sexy enough to have a Far Cry game. And it's funny because those games are made in Canada.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic? The games are made in Canada, but they don't think Canada's interesting enough. Well, that's probably in a way a compliment to your country, if you think about it.
Yeah, we don't have enough problems. The big fight today is whether the minimum wage should be raised to $14 or $15 right away. This is the pressing issue in Canada right now. This is our reality.
And here we are in the States, and our minimum wage is still like eight and change or something like that. I don't even know anymore, but it's much lower.
I think that makes us good observers in terms of our video game development, that because, Ubisoft Montreal isn't in it in the US, they can kind of go there, and we're close enough to be aware, but we're not. I'm sure there's days where it's very there because things are so charged. And I mean, this is kind of the point of art, is to get far enough away from the specifics of these day-to-day screaming news cycles to kind of go, okay, let's step back and kind of look at this soup we're in. Is there something we can do about this? Cool. I mean, part of the reason gamers have these discussions is because of the content in some of these games. So I think it's great. I'm really looking forward to it. And it is so rare I get super hyped about a game. I am very cautious about being excited, but I'm excited for this one.
I think it needed a huge change in the setting like that, because Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 had a little bit of sameness to them. They were both good games. I think Far Cry 3 I may prefer a little more, but what were you going to say?
I'm torn, right? Because there are parts of 4 that I loved, but I agree with you. I think that Vas, the
villain in 3 was amazing.
Yeah, like he totally stole the game. He was just lightning in a bottle. Michael Mandow knocked it out of the park. Every time I see his name in the credits of Better Call Saul, I'm like, Evas! He nailed it. You don't get that. And so, I don't know, there was just something so new and fresh and raw about what he did. Pagan Min never hit me the same way, because that was that Rowan Atkinson?
Interesting character, but yeah, he didn't have the same... It wasn't as electrifying, yeah.
He was too smooth. He didn't have that manic energy that drew you in. I mean, I won't spoil it, but we needed more of us in 3. I think they actually underused that character. I know why they did it, but the thing I did like about 4, and it was a relatively subtle thing, but I like the fact that you could get lost in the world and not fulfill some primary objectives. You can get so lost in the immersion in that world. Blanking on the name, so I want to keep calling Kandak, but that's something from or Manda Parbat, which are DC Comics places, but it's one of those things. You can get so absorbed that you forget what you're doing there.
Yeah,
and then the fact that the choice. I love multiple endings in games as well. I really like them, and I like the fact that there were very
because it makes you feel like you're controlling your own destiny even more.
Yeah, but the endings in Far Cry 4, they were nuanced, so they were sort of they weren't totally separated, and the choices at the end, and the fact that it's open ended, whether you kill certain main characters, and the game can continue no matter what you choose. I really liked that about 4. I thought that was a nice little techno narrative, I'll say, innovation, or ludo narrative innovation that they put that flexibility in. And the fact that there's something of a hidden ending if you don't follow the instructions, that's kind of cool. I mean, I blew Pagan Min's head off. I just went around killing everybody. I thought you're all terrible people. Fuck you. I'm happy with that ending. I like the fact that there was something different if it wasn't. And he was really morally ambivalent, but I could just, and this is me, it's totally valid to make a different option. He was still a dictator. He was still a horrible piece of shit. I still decided the world was better off without him. And it was so satisfying to just blow his fucking head off. But that's the bad end, of the game. You don't get to see something. But I liked I had the choice to not give a shit about my mother's ashes by the end. Like, lady, what did you get me into?
Seriously.
there were some really good aspects of the design in that game. Now, what was lacking was solid secondary characters.
And I thought for Far Cry 4 was a little bit more fetch questy than 3.
And I think that's partially
there was
because
pacing issues with 4 that weren't in 3.
Yeah, and I think that was because the characters were weaker. It didn't have the bombast. It didn't have the fun of 3. And I mean, they really tried to get away. I love the fact that 3, the main character is this douchey white guy who thinks you become this, indigenous warrior by putting tribal tattoos on your blindingly white skin. I love that was a tip-off, right, to how you were supposed to play the game. I thought that was great, but they took a lot of shit for it. Right. And so they didn't do that again. They had a protagonist that was non-white but he had that whole very important person element of a sort of biologically given status within that world because he was, somebody's son, and, his mother was somebody and his father was somebody, and therefore he was automatically important. I just found that the brother and the sister, weren't developed enough, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't let them chew the scenery. I thought that the brother was better than the sister because he seems all peace, love, spiritual traditionalist, and then you find out, oh, he's okay with child marriage. Hold up,
Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't that panache, that those great monologues. And I know people are torn on monologues in video games because they're not interactive, but come on, those scenes in 3, they were amazing. They served
if they're done like that, then I'm down with that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where I think that developers just kind of take that artistic freedom that they kind of lack, if you know what I mean. And it's just like, look, man, you don't have the writing skill for this. Just stop. Let me play the game. Whereas with 3, they had it. And the performance, right? Like, one of the most underrated jobs in gaming is voice direction and motion capture direction. You need good people there because these people are acting through technology. And you rely on your directors, especially when you're coming in cold and you only have a partial script. You need the director to give you that embedding in this world that hasn't been completely created yet. So, Ubisoft does rehearsals on certain things that are just emotive rehearsals, where they don't actually say the lines. They go in there and just say, what are you feeling in this moment? And apparently they did it with the tiger in Far Cry Primal. Those animals were actually played by people to do the motion capture. And apparently I read that.
Yeah, he jumped up on the mammoth, the block that was the mammoth, and he just goes, I'm a fucking tiger. And everybody broke up. And that's the mark of a good choreographer, motion capture director, all that stuff. You get that sense of camaraderie in a game. Others clearly don't have it. It's something that's really lacking in Bethesda games.
I was just about to say, Elder Scrolls, anybody?
Well, because they record those all separately. They're just voices and then they animate something. People aren't in the same room.
Yeah, they're just dead. Like, anytime you go on a quest, you're speaking to somebody, you get information, it's just like, I die a little inside. It's just like, what am I doing? Like,
you talk about fetch questy,
yeah, that's hardcore. That's why it's like, Skyrim isn't a bad game, but it was just too fetch questy. And the thing is, it's so dialogue heavy, and the dialogue is so fucking uninteresting. It's just like, god.
It's not just that. The audio mechanics in that game, everything had a conical range on it. So if you got stuck behind, whatever that fucking Nord commander, and he's talking and you can't fucking hear him because he's way the hell down there, and you stop to pick up loot from a chest. And I don't care. I realized eventually that it was completely unimportant, but way to suck you out of the scene.
Yeah, total buzz killer when there's almost no buzz to begin with.
Well, people like those games for what you can do with them. Talk about a franchise that embraced their mod community. And they embrace
the shit out of it almost as much as like Half-Life 2, if not more.
Well, that's been my confusion with Valve of late. Is Valve stopped, like, they're supporting mod communities through Steam in that regard, but in their own games for a while there, they really stopped those long tail mod cycles. They went right from Left 4 Dead 1 into Left 4 Dead 2, and it was sort of, why? I mean,
they totally killed Left 4 Dead 1, yeah.
Yeah, like the whole point of this, and I thought the characters in Left 4 Dead 1 were a lot better.
Yes,
I would have preferred, like, just add characters and just update your engine and just give me more story. I didn't need fundamental changes like they put in with 2. I didn't think it was enough of a leap to justify a second game.
2 just felt like DLC for 1, to be honest with you.
And they claim there were all these changes with the director system behind the scenes. I didn't
feel them or see them. And I've played the shit out of both of those games, and I did not feel them or see them.
Yeah, and I mean, Francis is my dude. I love Francis, and there's nobody like that in 2. Like, I hate this, and I hate Ian.
Well, they made the official add-on for the first game's characters in 2.
Yeah, because
that just shows you right there. Yeah, it was so weird. They come out with 1 and they come out with 2. Well, I know Valve can't count to 3. Ha 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 ha. And then they have to come out with a third one.
Yeah, no, and I just didn't understand it. Like,
so weird.
The whole thing about them is Valve does 2 things well. They let their modders go crazy with their stuff.
Which is good. I agree with that. It's fine.
Yeah, and so people get very attached to these games that do a small number of things exceedingly well, but they do not have the depth or the breadth of other games on the market that you're playing just as much for. But then they also they're very good at buying up good ideas. You know, like Portal came from that. A lot of people were Team Fortress modders. And they came in with these great mods, and so they hired them. Like, that was
Counter-Strike started as mods too as well.
Counter-Strike, that was the one I was looking for, not Team Fortress. But they almost lost their lifeblood by just bouncing off their mod community with Left 4 Dead. It seems like they focused much more on Steam. I got to admit, I'm okay with that, just because I think it's a conflict of interest.
I don't think Valve knew how big Steam was going to get.
I don't think so. And part of the reason is because they don't seem to have much of a conflict of interest firewall between their software side for games and then their role as a distributor for everybody else's games other than EA on PC.
Well, they used to be EA, but the EA was like, yeah, we're starting our own thing, so fuck you.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember when I didn't buy Left 4 Dead, it just showed up on my PC one day with the demo. And I was like, fuck you. I didn't ask you to put this on my PC. But they got away with it because they're Valve and they have this bank of goodwill. And we got to be really careful with stuff like that. Which is artificial
goodwill. We've kind of put the goodwill into them by making their CEO a meme.
Yeah, but I agree. But that's an unpopular thing to say, right? And yes, Valve has done some good things locally. They do some things right.
But they also do some shady shit too. Why is their customer service garbage when they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation?
And being a game publisher and a game distributor, when you're like, we know what the Xbox exclusives are, for instance, or the PlayStation exclusives. We know those get extra oomph in the store and, in incentives and all that stuff. There's fewer profits to have to be split around for fewer people. And so they push them. It's their own product. I don't think people are quite aware that Valve is the same. Like, they really need to do more to be
transparent.
We're containing our software development division outside of Steam for the purposes of Steam. And you have to be really careful. Not only are they playing up their own products, which I think is less nefarious, but are they playing down things that compete with their products? That's an
I'm sure they are unofficially. I think we could assume they are, because that's kind of what EA did that. They're like, okay, we're coming out with our own digital distribution service. And you know how remember how they played it at first as, oh, no, we're still going to have our games on Steam. Don't worry. And then it was just like, yeah, we're not. Fuck you. We lied. We're totally competing with Steam. I actually kind of like Origin now. I have no issue with Origin, but
I do too. I just forget where my games are.
That pisses me off. That's what I get. Like Steam is first, Origin is second. I have most of my games in between that.
Yeah.
But then you have Ubisoft, who has their thing. Then you have what the hell else is there out there? I can't even think of it right now. I probably have games on another service
GOG.
too. I get GOG.
There's GOG. There's and I miss the days where you plugged in a CD or 6 and the game installed on your computer and there's a little desktop icon and off you went to the races. Now I have to go, which service is this game on? And I mean, there's parts of Uplay I like too. I like their little incentives with points for playing games. I don't like Uplay that much.
I just deal with it because you have to with certain games.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't hate Origin as much as everybody else did, though I admit I forget it's there. And I mean, some people I know, they get all these access previews and all that stuff, but I have to watch how many clients I have running on my PC, because it really does slow shit down as well if you're logged into a bunch of stuff, because that's all pinging with remote servers, because it's monitoring what you're doing in game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. People seem to forget that too. Yeah. I mean, knowing it's one thing I think with PC gaming is that everyone's trying to become the next Steam right now. So certain companies, you want to get a Ubisoft game, you got to deal with Uplay. You want to get an EA game, you got to deal with Origin. They
want the user data.
They want the
user data from controlling the distribution network.
And they also don't want to share the money because when you sell a game on Steam, you got to give a cut to Valve. That's another thing too.
I don't blame them in that regard, because, I would be fine if Valve was we are just Steam. We are just a distribution platform, right? But they make games as well. And so I don't see them as any different than EA, than Ubisoft in that way. There's more goodwill. They did the green light program before it was trendy. They kind of helped indie games and all that stuff. Steam has an important function. But yeah,
artificial goodwill. Again, it's artificial goodwill, though. It's artificial instilled by the consumers.
It's so unpopular to say that, though. Like, I remember when everybody was freaking about DRM back in the day. It is true, but I remember people talking about DRM back in the day and freaking out and all that stuff. And they're like, yeah, but people were saying things like, well, there's no DRM in World of Warcraft. I'm like, what do you think BattleNet is? You can't be in game unless you're logged on to BattleNet. That is the DRM. Yeah. Steam is a form of DRM. Those clients watch everything you do. And I remember doing an interview with Valve for Left 4 Dead 2. And every answer to every question was, well, we focus grouped it, and these are the most popular characters. I mean, the characters for Left 4 Dead 2 were just the 4 most popular characters after the characters from Left 4 Dead 1. That's it.
They were second places. They were second places.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then, our focus group. And, we tested it. And, it's just like, there's no creativity to that. There's no artistry. There's no passion to that. It was multiple choice.
It was just, they took the skin of Left 4 Dead 1 and they wanted to make money from another full game. And this is before Steam was as big as it is now, and they got their money. I played the shit out of Left 4 Dead 2, so I'm not hating on Left 4 Dead 2. But if you put that game in your system and you think it's an upgrade from Left 4 Dead 1, no. Just stop.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because I thought it was just me who was totally underwhelmed.
It's a fun game. It was just a really, really expensive DLC for Left 4 Dead 1. It's all it was. Stop.
I mean, all I really remember about Left 4 Dead 2, separate from Left 4 Dead 1, is being able to pick up guitars and beat zombies with them.
Yeah, they had they had melee weapons. They had more melee weapons than they did in the first. And that was a big thing, was the melee weapons. But yeah, it was the same. Yeah, it just kind of took the limelight away from 1, where you didn't get the mod community and all this stuff like that, because they came out with it so fast after the original. It was only a year, which for Valve was kind of shocking.
I also felt they overpromised on that director AI technology. I didn't really feel like it changed the game all that much. The tanks spawned in essentially the same places. The witches randomized to a point, but again, they were essentially in the same 5 or 10 spots. It wasn't that reactive, you know?
No, it was. I mean, it did react, and there was some randomization. At least I noticed. And like I said, I played the shit out of both those games, but it wasn't as smart as Valve tried to make it out to be.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
Man, here we are talking. Man, we've been talking about Valve and Steam. But it works though. It always happens. We talk about one thing and then we branch off to like 20 different things, and it just kind of works.
Rich, you may have noticed we're both giant nerds.
Yeah. No, really? Get out of here. But I like Steam. But it's funny is that we're moving on to Steam, and this is not a topic we were going to talk about today. As a matter of fact, the next topic we're going to talk about is a woman leaving her kids locking her kids in the trunk of a car while she went shopping. But Steam, I think, and I have to agree with Polygon. Yes, I just said that. Don't hurt me.
Whoa, we're just hitting all the things today.
Don't hurt me. There's many things I disagree with him with, and I will never like Arthur Guys. Deal with it.
But you were saying
the goodwill there is because of creamy memes, and Valve is still a corporation, and I think we have to keep that in the back of their minds. They're a corporation that wants to make money. The issue that I have with Valve is that their customer service, even though they're slowly trying to improve it, it should have been improved from not day one, but when Steam started to get the momentum that it did. There should have been the customer service there. It shouldn't have been that Valve was sued by the EU I think it was the EU, that now they have returns. It shouldn't be that there's no way to actually call somebody, okay, and find out if you have an issue with their account. That's one thing I have to give EA credit for. Now I'm giving EA credit. I just gave Polygon credit. Now I'm giving EA credit. Lightning's going to strike down on me. But EA, I had an issue with Dead Space 1 and 2. Okay, where it was like, because I have so many friggin' PCs around me, okay? I build PCs, I put the client on a bunch of different ones, and then that's how they have their DRM is like, wait a second, this guy's sharing his game with everybody, even though I'm not.
Right.
It's just computers that I'm building, so I had an issue with that, but I actually got someone to talk to for Origin. They were nice, they were friendly, they worked through the problem, and they fixed it. That's your competition, Valve. It may not work now because you're like the YouTube of digital distribution, but eventually someone like EA who has the money to do it is going to start chipping away at that.
Well, or worse, the majors will just pull out of Steam completely.
Yeah.
And even though they have a lot of indie stuff, they're still not going to bring money in.
Enough.
Yeah.
It's just like I say with Nintendo all the time. Yeah, okay, having that strong first party is nice, but you need that AAA third party. And if you don't have one of them, if you don't have one of those pillars, you will implode or collapse, I should say.
I mean, there's a reason that CD Projekt, their preferred distribution service is GOG. And that's why I started using GOG. Because, you have to use GOG.
Isn't GOG DRM free? I haven't used GOG that much.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, that was the reason they went for it, is that it is DRM 3. When I play The Witcher 2 or The Witcher 3, it is old school. There's a little icon on my computer that I click and the game starts. I don't have to go through. Yeah, I don't have to go through all this stuff. And that's how I got into GOG. And then, of course, GOG became crack because all the games I played when I was younger are on there. And I'm like, oh, my God, all those text-based adventure games. I freaking love those. And I just went down this rabbit hole that is easy to do on Steam. But at the same time, I don't know, Steam feels more like a store to me. It is very... And like you said, buyer beware. I mean, that's why to this day I still grind my teeth about Activision a little bit, because I had a bad experience back in the early days of 3D acceleration graphics cards with an Activision PC game, and they were of no help back when everybody had phone service, but they were dicks about it.
Well, I will say with Steam now is that with their return policy, literally, say you try a game for an hour or it doesn't work on your PC or it just sucks. Like, it was one thing I got to say, that's nice, because you can't return a game to GameStop if it just sucks, if it's new and you open it. Okay. You could go, you sign on through like I do it through Chrome. You put in your information. Oh, what's the game you just got? Okay, you don't like that game. It doesn't work on your computer. You get your money back now, sometimes within a couple hours. Worst case scenario is a day. you know, but yeah, there was that time for years and we just dealt with it and just took it metaphorically up the butt. It's like, oh, it's Valve, they're the best. We don't need to do returns. We could just get screwed over and have incompatible games. And there would be times you would get a game, it just wouldn't work on my computer. And
Splinter Cell Conviction wouldn't work on PC version of my computer through Steam.
And you just had to deal with it at the time because that's a while ago. That was before they had the returns. Yeah.
Yeah, I never ended up playing the game because it would launch to a black screen and I couldn't fix it.
And that's horrible customer service, man. It's horrible. And the fact that you can't talk to anybody at Steam still and be like, look, I'm having a problem with this game won't act. There's games on here that I have that like neither fixing them now, but games for Windows Live is an issue with it. And maybe there's some work. You know, you shouldn't have to depend on the community to deal with your customer support, Steam. You know, and
absolutely. The busier I get, the more phone support is essential for me.
Too. As an adult, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to pick something up. I do not want to have to surf forums and do workarounds. You know who else is great I have found for customer service is PSN. The Sony
I haven't had
store.
to deal with it. I haven't had, maybe because I've been gaming like 98% of my past generation, but I haven't had to deal with it.
It's when I tried back on the PS3 to download one of the Uncharted games. And my hard drive is just not big enough. You need double the space of the actual file size because of the way the games install. And so I phoned them up. I explained the situation to them. No problem. They refunded my money. Boom. I went out and I bought it from the store. Oh, it was so simple. And I think it's because it's a known problem. You know, I said, you guys sold me this game that's actually bigger than the hard drive I have on your console. Yep. No problem. Done. Easy, simple. And I think it's because they could have checked my account and known she has never called us before. So it was boom, no problem, good customer service. They're empowered to do that, the people on the phones. And I admit, like, the thing is, anything that makes a consumer hesitate to put down their money is bad for business. So they need these return policies. Yeah, because I know I still am trained. It's still like a gut reaction. Oh, I've heard this is buggy. I'm not sure it's going to work. I'm not going to buy it. I haven't gotten used to the fact that I can return a game now on Steam. I've still got that old instinct. And so, yeah, return policies are important for that reason. Some people abuse them, sure, but that's the minority. You know, I think return policies are good for
anyone's going to try to abuse every kind of policy like that, but you can't not have the policy because you're going to have 2% of your user base or your customers abuse it. You know what I mean?
Well, what I think these download services have to do is be tougher on AAA developers about the certification process. Like, it's supposed to be, that process is supposed to be so shit like Mass Effect Andromeda does not happen. You know, games do not come through not meeting a basic technical standard. And they're not catching these games. If those processes worked the way they're supposed to, we would not have this. But AAA fast tracks that process on consoles and on PC. It's an unfair financial advantage because small companies have to pay a shit ton for that process to get on PlayStation Network, to get on Xbox Live. It's not fair. There's an anti-competitive element to this that really bugs me.
Well, we'll end with this because we could talk about this probably for 6 hours. The only pass I'll give PC, and it still pisses me off, but you kind of have to, is there's so many different hardware variations for a developer to make sure they could work with everyone. It is impossible. There's no way you can do it. There's almost as many hardware variations as human beings have fingerprints. That's an exaggeration, but it's pretty close.
And it seems to be getting a little bit better, but yeah, you're right. The configurations are endless.
I would say, like, if you go back to, like, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into detail with it. We'll move on to the next story. When Windows 7 came out, it was like PC gaming became 6 billion times easier, like, overnight.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, yes, it's gotten a hell of a lot better, but yes, you're right. At the same time, it is frustrating, especially since I do primarily most of my gaming on PC, that sometimes you just get a game and it just won't work. I would say that's like one time out of 100 now, if not even higher ratio than even. It's very rare now, but it does happen enough where it is frustrating. But
because you spent all your gaming time troubleshooting. Yes. That's not fun.
And going into forums and doing all that shit. But anyway, totally different topic, and there's no way that we could segue into this because it just has nothing to do with tech. But I guess because I'm a father now, it kind of irritates me. But
it does have to do with dumb shit.
Dumb shit. Yeah. A Utah mom locked kids up in trunk to shop at Walmart. This actually comes from the Huffington Post. This is what I'm reading from. A woman was charged with child abuse after she allegedly shut her kids in the trunk of her car Thursday while she shopped at Walmart in Riverdale, Utah. The Deseret News has reported. Tori Castillo, 39, faces 4 counts of child abuse, according to a Weber County Sheriff's inmate roster. She was still in jail Tuesday morning and is to be arraigned today, a spokeswoman for the Sheriff's Office told the Huffington Post. The children ages 2 and 5 are safe thanks to an alert passerby as the children screamed and shook the car from the inside. One witness called police while others responded as well. Several good Samaritans observed this and came to the aid of the children. Riverdale Police Lieutenant Casey Warren told the newspaper. One of the witnesses, identified only as Heidi, probably because maybe this woman's a psychopath, she may go after her, told Salt Lake City's Fox 13 she could hear a little girl yelling for her mother to let her out. She said she instructed the child to open the emergency latch and out popped 2 kids like they were spring-loaded, she told the television station. While Heidi and a friend waited for police to arrive, the mother appeared. The only explanation was, my babysitter didn't show up. So maybe you go to Walmart fucking later. The children were released to their father. So the father's obviously around. So here you go. This is where all my opinions on this are coming from. The local ABC affiliate Good for Utah reported the Department of Child and Family Services is investigating along with police. So here's the thing on this. I feel guilty putting my son in a pack and play if I have to go poop.
Yeah.
There's so many different dynamics. First, I looked at this. I'm like, maybe there isn't that much. I'm like, no, there's a lot to talk about. Now, here's the thing. First and foremost, she obviously has, even if the father they aren't together, she obviously has a support system. Why did you have to go to Walmart at that time? Now, I could see if she had no family around, no friends and things like that. Obviously, there's nothing that she could say that can, putting her children in a trunk. Why couldn't you wait until a different time to go?
See, I have a friend. She actually works with, youth.
Okay.
She has some very interesting theories about this. She comes at it through the lens of the Black community in and around Baltimore. And she talks about, the mindset of places like Walmart, where when you see poverty and poor parenting, it embeds in you without you meaning for it to. And her whole thing is, why are you going to Walmart in a shower cap and slippers? Stop this. Have some pride in yourself. But when you're immersed, because as soon as I saw Walmart, I'm like, why Walmart? Why? It's gotta be Walmart, right?
And it's not even a racial thing, because you could be white, Hispanic. You look at the people of Walmart, the woman in this case, races.
Yeah, the woman in this case is a white woman. And so if that's why it's like, okay, let's take the lens of race out of this. It's got something to do with Walmart culture. It just, you see so many people just slacking that after a while, you give yourself more permission to slack. And slacking, it's really hard to find the line between slacking and being a terrible fucking parent. And I don't like to criticize parenting, because parenting's a hard ass job. But most parents know you don't lock your kids in the trunk. Like, why can't you take the kids into Walmart? I grew up with a single mom. Like, she just took us into Walmart. Yeah, like,
they're mobile, or you put them in one of the. Why couldn't you? There's so many different layers to this. Why couldn't you just take them in with you? Why couldn't you have someone else watch them? Why couldn't you wait till later to go to Walmart? Like, what could have been going through this woman's head that said this was going to end well? That's the thing that scares the shit out of me. And again, because like I said, I have a kid, and if I go to the bathroom for 5 minutes. I feel guilty putting him in his little bouncy seat. You know, he watches Baby Einstein for a few minutes and I do that. Like, how could you think that this is a good idea? I don't understand.
I think different people have varying degrees of empathy, and we have empathy for a reason. This is why I'm not a big fan of this I don't care about your feels movement online. We were given empathy as a thing to help us keep alive, to live long and prosper as a species. And it definitely comes in with childcare. Somebody like you obviously has a high level of empathy. When your kid hurts, you hurt, right? When your kid is scared, you feel terrible. Other people they don't have as much of that, whether they never had it or whether because of abuse or things like that, they lost it somewhere along the way. And that's why I'm such an advocate for don't let your feelings control you, but don't shut yourself so off from them because that's like losing a sense, right? That's like losing your eyes or losing your ability to hear or your ability to smell things. It does give us input to make us more effective so we don't do dumb shit.
And that's the thing, too, you could go into it now. I'm going to get Dr. Phil for a moment. Is that obviously this woman's upbringing couldn't have been, for her to think that this is okay, or even if she didn't think it was okay, for her not to give a shit enough to actually do this. Obviously, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And then you could go into her upbringing was shit. And I'm sure her parents' upbringing was shit. And it just kind of goes through the lines. And God, there's no logical reason for her to do this. And now, I'm sure she's going to face criminal charges because of it too.
Well, let's face it, some people just shouldn't have kids. And this is why we have things like social services. And thank God their dad's in the picture. I mean, who knows if he's any better. But
yeah, I was just thinking that. But yeah.
This comes into this whole thing. I mean, this is something sort of my direct wheelhouse. This idea that women are just natural. We have this innate knowledge of how to care for children.
Nurture.
It's a
pile of shit.
It's a complete pile of shit.
You know how many bad fucking moms I met, man?
Yeah, there's no magical knowledge that comes with a uterus about how to raise your kids. Childcare is way too complicated now. There are elements of being a parent today that the evolutionary process did not account for. It's so stupid, and I think that people get so bent about parenting, and I watch women guilt other women. A lot of women make decisions and I can't speak for guys. This is why I'm just speaking about this. A lot of women make decisions not because they think it's right for their kid, but they don't want to catch shit from their mommy group that is going to heap scorn upon them if they do, if they leave the kid alone for 30 seconds, or if they're not in every fucking extracurricular activity or something like that.
You have those moms that are the other extreme too, where they're like the soapbox moms. Where they think they're holier than thou. Then you end up finding out behind the scenes they're pieces of shit too.
And that's why they have to so tightly control their children, because they feel like they're flying apart themselves, right? I mean, kids need to be allowed to fall down, go boom. I've got friends, they actually homeschool their kids. And everybody goes, oh, homeschooling. But let me tell you, these kids are awesome. They're curious and they're polite and they have interests, and they're not subject to those same cliques or fads that the other kids I know who go to schools in very good neighborhoods. Like, money does not necessarily mean your kids are going to be better off. And it taught me a lot, because I had some preconceptions about.
A lot of times money can make them worse.
Yeah, because they don't have limits. They don't ever hear no. But I had some real preconceptions about homeschooling, and yes, the socialization is important, learning how to sit down and shut up, all that stuff I totally agree with. But they're really good kids. And I mean, like, they posted pictures on Facebook this week. They're out on the street with a lemonade stand. Who does that anymore? No, I thought it was so great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And I see that, and this family doesn't have a ton of money. They have a lot of ingenuity. They really know how to stretch a buck. But their kids are great, and they get crap all the time from people telling them how they should be raising their kids. And part of the reason they pulled them out of school is that They're in a neighborhood where there isn't a lot of school choice. There's school A and school B, and that's it. Their son was regressing in reading because he had a teacher in kindergarten who was great. He moved into grade 1. His teacher just did not get him. And he's one of those kids that if you don't get him, he goes into the fairyland that he came from, And so I think people need to be less judgmental about stuff that doesn't matter, so that shit like parents locking their kids in the car is not treated as a news of the weird viral story. It should be treated with the seriousness that it deserves. I mean, my God, like I can practically hear the thought processes of this woman, right? I'm not supposed to leave my kids in the car because it overheats. So she thought she was being a good parent by locking their kids in the trunk. And it's probably not the first time she did it.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that. I have no evidence to back that up, but I can guarantee you that she didn't.
Yeah, I had the same. It's because she did it so brazenly. She did it in a parking lot. And you'd think it would be common sense. But common sense is not that common anymore, considering we're dealing with completely different sets of facts, completely different sets of education curriculums. Who knows, obviously the level of education is not there. And she was probably neglected as a kid too.
That's probably the key to it, because a lot of times you could have people who have book smarts who have zero common sense. So it's probably, because, and common sense comes from a lot from having common sense, because it should be something you just know. But a lot of the times it comes from upbringing and things that you and I think are, dog, no shit, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
If her parents treated her like shit, they're like, yeah, my parents did it. They locked us in a fucking closet for 6 hours when they went out and did shit. It was no big deal to them.
Yeah, they were probably locked in the car when mom went into Walmart. And like I said, they know you're not supposed to do that anymore. They've done public education campaigns. But I know I'm repeating myself now, but there's a real disconnect, because we always used to go into the stores and shop with mom. My sister
even if you are a baby, who gives a shit? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my sister would. But in certain parts of the U.S., they're not very kid-friendly. I don't know about Utah, but I think Utah is actually very kid-friendly. It's Mormon country. But, this idea that children should be seen and not heard probably plays into this as well, because I don't want to hear them cry. I've heard this from people, like, just give them what they want. I don't want to hear them cry. Just, people got baby gates and playpens everywhere in their house because they want to sit on Facebook all day playing fucking whatever the Farmville Candy Crush is the thing now. I've seen this. I've seen moms who are on Facebook all day and they claim they're so busy watching their kids. The thing about Facebook is it tracks when you're on,
Yes, I know
you were playing. Yeah, I know you beat 18 levels in Candy Crush Saga today, lady. You're not that busy. It just, people create fictions for themselves. And I'm sure that if we actually broke this down, that would be what this is. This woman had such an involved fiction, here comes Honey Boo Boo style.
Oh God, I could say maybe 1 billion people on my Facebook that have an involved fiction.
Yeah. But did you see that show, that Honey Boo Boo show? Like, was anybody surprised that there was bad shit going on there?
Oh yeah, didn't she end up dating like a pedophile or something like that?
Yeah.
It was just, did you really think? Yeah, she's just a shitty. And now like everyone's like ready to exonerate her of her shittiness because she had weight loss surgery. Like, you may be a piece of shit, but since you don't look horrid anymore, we'll just look past that. Like, get the fuck out of here.
This is opening up a whole new topic, but I do take issue with this idea of weight and morality, that thinness as virtue instead of just being an aesthetic. I have a real issue with that. There's a Pennington's ad that they run online now. Oh my God, I practically teared up watching this thing because it's a plus size dance troupe. And these women got together because they're big women. They're fluffy, right? But girls can move. They're kicking ass. Like, they're doing everything a smaller woman. And they talk about the fact that, people go, you're a dancer? And these women are really good. And so I'm watching this thing. It's the whole thing. They did a theme song and they bring in the founder and she's like, what's going on? And they surprise her with the song and she's like, I'll cry and I'm trying not to cry. And it's like, it's one of those little things that remind me I'm still not a complete asshole. But the fact that we still have to remind people that different people's bodies have different places they want to be. I trained with a woman. Both my ballet teachers, when I was competitive, were big girls. And that's why they were teaching and not performing.
Dancing,
but the thing that made them good teachers is that they weren't naturally suited. So they had to struggle to learn these things that may have come easy to other people. So they were better at giving their students little tips and tricks to work with it, instead of it being, why isn't this coming to you? You know, the best dancers don't make the best teachers. And I have that experience of seeing this, you know, size 24 woman just tear you up at dance. You make assumptions. And it's a problem because people are walking around miserable.
Hell, it's coded into our DNA. If you don't look the way our brain thinks you're supposed to look, then there's something wrong. Which is always funny. Which is always funny. I always remember there was this dude on YouTube, and I don't think I remember his name, and even if I did, I wouldn't, because he was a dick, and I'm sure people would go to his page, and you know how the internet works. Yeah. He was sitting there. He was kind of almost a proud former drug addict, and still did a couple things. He was smoking a cigarette. And he was drinking some, I think, whiskey. And he was sitting there talking about this fat dude having a cheeseburger next to him. And he's like, yeah, I know I have all these problems, but he's fat, so I got to make fun of him. I'm like, dude, just because you're skinny, you're sitting there smoking a Marlboro Red, saying that you used to do acid all the time, while you're drinking and you say you have a drinking problem. Yeah, okay. Yeah, being fat, I've said before, is not okay. I actually made a thing where I was supposed to lose weight a year ago, and it didn't work out too well. But just because you don't look bad doesn't mean that what you're doing, but that's the thing. You could be a cokehead, but because of the fact that it doesn't show on you, at least yet, it will eventually. Right. That's okay. But because you're fat and you see aesthetically that there's an issue, people go after it. Whereas, you could have a fat person, you have a guy who's a cokehead next to it. If a guy with a cokehead looks okay, people won't give him a hard time. And that's because it's hardwired into us to be that way.
That is why a lot of actresses end up complete train wrecks. They've got these addictions, but that Alanis Morissette lyric, I'm sick, but I'm pretty. It is very much that. The thing I had to find with weight and with food and all that stuff, because I got the anorexia that came with dance, I had to teach myself, it's not about how you look, or it's not about the number on the scale. It's, are you doing the best you can for yourself, or are you punishing yourself with food? One way or another, it doesn't matter if you're fat, it doesn't matter if you're skinny. Do you have an unhealthy relationship with food? If you take it that way, and, hey, I'm not going to have fries today, I'm going to have a salad. That's the way people have to think about it. Still have that steak. We're finding out that eggs and red meat are really not as bad for us as we thought in moderation. So go ahead and have that, but make those little small choices. I mean, for a lot of people, it's sodas. And even diet sodas are loaded with sodium. It was so hard to quit sodas, but your body does your body does realign. The problem is, and for people who have never had to radically change their eating habits, and I'm talking to the audience right now, not you, Rich. It is miserable.
You could be talking to me. That's fine.
Yeah, because you are retraining your body physiology. You are getting it, because the first things your body grabs is starch and fat. Right? They're easily absorbed. It goes right to the brain. Boom! That carb explosion makes you feel good temporarily. Yes.
And it's the same as like with cigarettes or with it's dopamine. It's as a receptors. Yeah. It's hitting those same spots in the brain.
And conversely, you have to get through that month of constant headaches when you're coming out of that. And, people with jobs that require a certain mental acuity, they can't always do that. And so I wish people would get, I don't, and people treat fat shaming as this whole like, oh, cry me a river, right? I think it is a real thing. And I think that if people were subjected to more positives, it would be more useful for weight loss efforts, because losing weight is fucking hard.
Yeah, it's hard as shit. It's hard. And they and people, and it's so funny because you see the comments too, and I don't even care about the fucking comment. Oh, why don't you just go to the gym and stop eating as much? It's like, all right, man, yep, that's simple. You know what? Tomorrow I will be 180 pounds with washboard abs. Thank you for telling me something fucking obvious that I don't already know.
I see the comments you get, and they piss me off.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make me angry. It's just, I'm looking at him like, and you know what? I'm always thinking to him like, I guarantee you, this dude or women or whatever is, they probably have so many other issues, but because they're not fat, to them it's like, oh, I could stand on this soapbox right now.
Well, but to me, it's like, holy shit! You just watched a video made by this guy who, guess what, was making the fucking video with all the recording and all the editing that comes with it, instead of doing things that are more physically oriented for your entertainment and your enjoyment. So if you are enjoying the content, shut the fuck up.
They won't,
no, because it's easy, and because it's one of the things that you're still allowed to say. And some people just, it's like, on South Park, the shit rolls downhill, so Cartman makes fun of Pip. And he's always, your family's poor, Kenny, your family's poor. And I love that, because here's Cartman, he picks on other people, so he doesn't get picked on. He becomes a bully. And, the more and more we find out about Cartman, his family life is completely fucked up, and so he's deflecting. He's deflecting that shame he feels by making other people miserable. And there's a lot of hard truths on South Park, and that's one of them.
Well, that's why South Park has been around now for 20 years, and it's still relevant. Yeah. They put out the hard truth. But here's the bottom line. Like I said in my video, everyone's like, oh, you made that video, and no, I'm saying being fat is not okay. Deal with it. There's no reason that, as much as I don't like the people that sit there in the comments and feel holier than thou, because I'm sure they have their fucking issues. The thing of saying that, okay, let's just normalize something that's unhealthy, that's also not good. Okay, I'm not going to go down that road where it's like, oh, I'm big and I'm beautiful. Deal with it. Like, no. Don't get what I'm saying twisted. The people that sit there being know-it-all dicks and calling you a fat fuck, I don't like that either. But making it that it's okay, it's perfectly fine, that's just you. No, that's not okay either. And everyone's like, oh, you were a hypocrite because of that video, because you didn't lose the weight. You said being fat is not okay. No. Being fat is not okay. I still say that now. 100% stand behind what I said in that video. And I think that's also the other thing I don't like. I don't like the know-it-all pieces of shit in the comment section, but I also don't like the people that are trying to make it that, oh, big is beautiful and it's perfectly fine. No, it's not. It's not healthy for you. It's also not that either.
You can tell when somebody's body is where it's supposed to be and when someone is unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And there are just various cues to that. Genetics have a lot to do with it. But yeah, I mean, I would much prefer the whole thing be shifted towards what does each individual person want for themselves. And I watched that video that you made. I think it took a lot of balls to say that, because you were opening yourself up to criticism. But to me, it really showed a self-awareness there that, you're very open with this is something you're working on. You have successes and failures. And I think that really speaks to anybody who's tried to do something really fucking difficult. It is not a straight line. I mean, my stepdad started smoking in Korea in the war. He wasn't thinking about having to quit when he was 68 because he has out of control diabetes. And it took him a good 9 or 10 tries. He'd quit for a year and start again. He'd quit for 6 months and start again. It is no different. None. Habits are hard to break. Some people do have addictive genes as well. I mean, they're finding out more and more that incredibly, like, you know, people who are 450 pounds plus, that's actually the brain lacking the switch that tells you to stop eating. It's actually a physiological problem. And, you know, once you hear things like that, it's like, man, why don't we back to empathy again, right? Like, I have some issues. I don't want people shitting on me for my issues, you know?
But people love to do it, though. People love to do it because it makes them, because a lot of those people that shit on you for your issues, whether it be weight or whatever the case may be, they have shit going on behind the scenes, and that's their dopamine rush. They get behind the keyboard, you fat fuck, why aren't you a fucking failure this? And they get off on that because you're like, man, as soon as I step away from this keyboard, I got to go back to my miserable life, so that for that 30 seconds, I feel good because I got to make someone, hopefully, even though it doesn't work on me anyway, hopefully make them feel like a piece of shit.
Well, I call it Wolverine syndrome. Any vice Wolverine has, you know, Wolverine from the X-Men is acceptable. So smoking, drinking, and rage are all acceptable, you know, with a side of drugs. They're all acceptable vices because that's what we saw the heroes in media do. You know? That's
true. And like I said before, it also doesn't show on you, at least initially, physically.
Yeah.
You don't see when someone's, you know, doing bumps, you know, snorting lines, you know, once every couple times a week. You don't see it. So they're doing that. All right, even though it could kill them, because if you do coke once, it can make your fucking heart explode. That's all right though, because we don't see it. They're still aesthetically pleasing to the eye. That's what it is, you know, and that's the thing. But, you know, it's also, like you said, it's also right because it's also accepted. You know, smoking is accepted. It still is. Smoking cigarettes to this day is still fucking accepted. I don't give a shit what anybody says. You know, drinking is accepted. Even doing certain hard drugs until you start getting to needles and heavy shit or crack is accepted. You know, but, you know, because it's just what we've grown up with and been conditioned with.
But again, those hard drugs, things like meth, it starts making you look ugly. And
when all of a sudden people change their tune. But in the beginning,
that's right.
Oh, you did meth. Even no one really does meth a few times. You do meth, you become a fucking full blown addict. But I'm just making a really stupid point, but actually still kind of works. Oh, you've tried. Let's say you've tried hard drugs a few times, or you do them recreationally. That's okay. But you eat too much. Oh my God, you're such a piece of shit. Because again, it's because of what societal norms are, and because we have stupid fucking 8 brains that if someone doesn't look the way our genes tell us they're supposed to look, oh my God, something's wrong, and we flip out.
I think though there's cultural, it's not just genes, because if you go to, say, the Polynesian Islands or even Japan, big dudes have tropes in society. I mean, sumo wrestlers, Polynesians are big ass people. They are just huge. And you'll see a guy, he's got to be pushing 280. He'll climb a tree like nothing. You know, it's just part of the diet of, it's mainly plant-based and poi, which is fucking disgusting, but makes you feel really good. But they have to consume so many calories to get their daily requirements that has become what they look like. And there's sort of if you fit a certain stereotype, then you're allowed to be
that stereo.
Yeah. You know, it's like, that's why I can't stand that show, This Is Us. I would love there to be a plus size woman on television that people embrace, but her whole storyline is about weight loss, you know, and that's why she's acceptable. And I know it's very motivational for a lot of people. I am not the audience of the show, but I wonder, you know, like it was the same issue I had with that show, Mike and Molly. That was a whole bunch of very talented comedians telling fat jokes for a half hour a week. And I was like, I really want to like these people, but I am so deeply uncomfortable. Same way I feel about Big Bang Theory. It's all self-hating nerd stuff. And at some point, comedy became, let's just say, horrible shit about ourselves for the amusement of others. And I'm like, when did this happen? You know, comedy used to be an art. It used to be Archie Bunker saying some really profound, crazy, politically incorrect stuff, and we could laugh with him without espousing those views. You know, like now you're so defined by the content you watch that if it's not 100% in line with what you believe, you have to shun it. And I think that's why more and more people are turning to substances, because nothing feels good anymore, you know?
Yeah, it is true. Yeah. It's depressing, but it is true. This is another subject I could go on for about 8 hours. Sorry about this week. We don't really have the segues, guys, because our topics are all over the place. But now we're going back to technology again. And this one I actually have a lot to say, because it's interesting that it took so long for it to fit. We kind of talked about it before. I don't know if on the podcast, but at least in a couple of videos I did. But now it's like official. PlayStation 3 is dead, which I know a lot of you were like, well, no shit. No, but I mean, they're not making them anymore. I'm surprised it was
alive that long. Yeah.
They're not making them. That's it. They're not making it. They're not shipping them anywhere. That's it. This is coming from GameSpot. This is actually pretty short, so I'll read it to you. After more than 80 million, I thought it was closer to 90 million systems worldwide, PlayStation 3 console shipments have come to an end in Sony's home country of Japan. I think it's the whole world, though. This was announced in a notice posted on the Japanese PlayStation website, translated by Kimitsu. It pertains to the 500 gigabyte PS3 model, which was the only remaining system in the country. I think that was everywhere, so you can't. As a matter of fact, if I go into a GameStop for a while now, you haven't been able to get a new one. The page mentions that shipments for the console have ended. The PS3 launched in Japan and in the States too in November 2006. It remains to be seen when PS3 shipments will end in the US or other major gaming markets. They have already. I could prove that.
Yeah.
For like the past year and a half, if you've gone into a GameStop, at least where I'm around, they haven't had them new. You can get them used. In 2014, PlayStation software product development head for America, Scott Rowett, said that people were still buying PS3s even after the launch of the PlayStation 4. Yeah, a little bit. He stressed that Sony would support PS3 as long as there is a good business there for us. We'll end it there. There's no reason to go into the rest of it. Man, it's just crazy. What were we going to say?
I mean, I think it's funny the way, because you know me and my whole thing about how media presents stories. And I'll say this and let you have the floor.
Yeah.
Instead of PS3 comes to an end, it's this negative framing. The fact that they kept their promise of a 10-year life cycle for the console, I think is the important takeaway.
Almost right? 11 years,
yeah. It wasn't just 10 years to the day. They let it go. So when you go to purchase a Sony product in future, and this is why I love Sony products, they keep their promises for the most part in terms of how long this thing is going to last you. And when you're thinking about buying something at launch, that 10-year promise is really compelling, especially since I went like the entire time I had a PS3 with one machine. It did not break. It was one of those old bubble ones. But I
so
think
you had the OG one. You had the
back compatible one.
George Foreman. Okay.
Yeah. And it worked awesome. I played the shit out of that thing. And so that when the PS4 came out, I did not even hesitate, because the PS2 lasted me forever. The PS3 lasted me forever. Giddy up PS4, sold. And that's like what we were talking about, Valve and returns and all that stuff. That customer confidence is essential.
Yes.
And that's what I think hurt the Xbox One some is I think back and I went, I bought 3 Xbox 360s during that same period because they all ROD'd. They all crapped out, that solder broke, and they never got better. And that meant I went out and paid a PS4 full price, not even thinking about it, no bundle, nothing. I waited for that cheap version holiday sale for the 360, for the Xbox One. I got that Assassin's Creed Watch Dogs bundle. So they got less money out of me than Sony did equivalently because I don't have the same brand loyalty in terms of quality. So I think that's super important. So now I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this because I'm sure your thing is very different.
I'm actually just thinking back, man. It's like the end of an era. You think of, I remember I used to work at a furniture store way back in the day. And I remember it was like 2005 and the 360 was about to launch. And I didn't expect the 360 to have a chance in hell compared to the PlayStation 3. And I wasn't even big into gaming. That was kind of when I went through a gaming hiatus.
Interesting.
I'm sure a lot of you guys who watch my RTU know I've had that gaming hiatus back then. I remember thinking there was this guy named Steve there. His little, God, he was actually older than me, but he was a really young looking small dude. And I remember him saying, no, man, the 360 is going to destroy the PS3. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Stop. After the run that Sony had with the PS2, and I heard the rumors about the PS3, that was back when they were saying it was going to have multiple HDMI ports and all this crazy crap that Kutaragi was promising. And I'm like, no, man, there's no way.
Yeah.
You know, and he was right. I mean, in the end, the PS3 actually ended up being toe-to-toe, if not outselling the Xbox 360. But yeah, it had a interesting beginning, and that's putting it nicely. So it was just, it's kind of like you saw Sony really, the reason I say the PS3 is an end of an era, because you saw Sony really stumble in the beginning. Actually, for a couple of years, it wasn't really, they didn't change their fortunes with the PS3 until like 2009, when they came out with the semi-slim model. Then they had that garbage, like, 1980s boombox looking one that came out in 2012. But,
forgot about that one.
Okay. Yeah, they had the plastic door it literally looked like a boombox. You would see it like a old store like Ames or Jamesway. I don't know if you guys had those up there back in like the early 90s, and it felt like
forgot about that model. Yeah. Oh God, that's weird. Yeah.
But it was just amazing to see how, I usually, like, when a product comes out and it comes out with a shitty reputation, it usually generally stays that way in most cases, from what I've seen personally. And it kind of either becomes the underdog or it stays doomed. And it was, well, it's interesting now, but it actually happened with the Xbox One this generation. They changed their fortunes around with it. Granted, it's not outselling the PS4, but it definitely is doing a hell of a lot better than it did. But it was weird to see, like, the PS3 was, I think we talked about this, where it was so toxic for a while. Even it was like the butt of jokes, man. Especially how they announced it, the high price they announced that. Yeah,
the price is what really made it stumble. And Xbox did the same thing with the Xbox One. It was dumb. I hope they learn with Scorpio, or whatever the fuck it ends up being called.
At least you could give Sony this, even though you didn't really see it with games until like the Killzone 2. At least you could say at least the PS3 was more powerful, at least on paper, than the 360. And with this, when later on, when you got the exclusive games, then it was like, oh, okay, I see where that cell processor is coming in now. The Xbox One, when it launched, and it was $100 more than Sony's console, actually was inferior hardware performance-wise to the PS4. So you were spending more money on a camera that may watch you jerking off.
But that was not the hype. That was not the hype, right? The hype was it was a superior system, and hardware wise it was, but it was the software architecture that fucked that box. It just was doing too much at once. And I'm really interested to see how this Scorpio is going to go. I don't have. It's really going to depend on what the price point is, because unless they come out with some absolutely astounding looking games for that unit, most people don't care. They're not going to get the sales volume on tech nerds looking for superior performance.
No, because they're on PC. They're on PC.
Yeah, exactly. And they're never going to be able to simulate the PC experience. Right? There's just no way they can't make it cheap. They can't make it cheap enough that way. They are really going to have to create some profoundly excellent games that ship finished. They have had some good stuff come out on the Xbox, but it's not ready. It's half baked. If they had given Recore another 3 months, that game would have done much better, I believe, because the core of that game was really neat. I really like the idea. They have to stop doing stupid shit like launching Tomb Raider on the same day as Fallout 4.
Yeah, that was terrible.
They didn't just,
That was terrible.
Sony shot themselves in the foot once. But then they slowly brought out this catalog of really great games for their system. Now, part of the problem with Sony was third party. They didn't like their source codes. They were a lot harder to work with than the Xbox. And so developers were slow to figure out how to use the PlayStation source codes as well on the PS3. But Sony brought out a collection of really amazing games, first party. And then other developers are like, oh, so that's how you do that on the PlayStation. And it eventually just became, and they learned a lot of lessons when the PS4 came out as well. I mean, they stopped being arrogant. Yeah. But the Scorpio, it's not going to be called that, but they are really gonna have to bring out something with a face, and that's why I think it's so weird that they canceled Scalebound, because that could have been it.
That could have been, yeah. And they were saying they were having quote unquote performance issues on the Xbox One, whether that was a pile of shit and there was just a fallout between Platinum Games and Microsoft. I don't know. But, if it was truly the case and there was an issue with performance, the Scorpio could have, picked up that baton and been like, okay, now you have the horsepower to do it. And here's a game that almost couldn't run, even though technically you're supposed to have the game run on both systems, almost couldn't run on the Xbox One. Now we got it running in close to, maybe you can't run at 4K, but close in a better than 1080p resolution on Scorpio. The only thing, the silver lining I'll give to the Scorpio, how we went from PS3 to Scorpio, but it kind of pertains to it. The silver lining to the Scorpio is now that Microsoft is not making them have parity with like things like frame rates between the Scorpio and the original Xbox One. Now, like I said in one of my recent videos, that's also kind of shady too, because before the Xbox One S launched, they were like, oh yeah, it has to have parity. Don't worry about it. No one's going to be left behind. Now that their focus is more toward the Scorpio and they're not trying to get you to buy their refined system, because the Xbox One S wasn't even out yet when they were talking about the Scorpio. Now it's like, okay, now we want people to buy the Scorpio. So yeah, the whole parity thing, yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to let developers do whatever they want to, because now they want people to get the Scorpio. They don't really give a shit as much. Because if you really think about it, if they made that announcement that games would have been totally different on the Scorpio compared to the Xbox One, people would have been like, yeah, I'm not going to buy the One S.
Exactly.
So they didn't want to have a complete death of sales for a year. So they said shit that they were basically just like trying to appease people. Now, and it was always funny, like I said in another one of the videos, Aaron Greenberg, whenever like GameSpot would ask him, IGN would ask him, so there's that parity clause, right? No one's going to be left behind if they own an Xbox One or Xbox One S. The Scorpio is just a mid-generation refresh, right? And they would ask specifically, and Aaron Greenberg would just give like this long-winded, non-direct answer every single time, at least with the interviews that I saw.
The boilerplate. Yeah, the marketing boilerplate.
Well, we're doing this with it. He never said, yeah, no, we're never going to leave anyone behind. Where Sony was kind of more staunch about it. Like, look, you own a PS4, you're going to get the game. Every pro game is going to work on the PS4. It's basically you're going to get the game, and it's going to be a patch that upgrades it.
Yeah. Again, though, that's Sony's corporate tradition versus Xbox's corporate tradition. Nobody should expect Xbox to tell the truth about those things anymore. I mean, they've just, fool me 16 times, shame on me at this point. I just kind of assume, yeah, right. Remember HoloLens? Remember this, remember that? Like, where the fuck is that headset?
Yeah, I keep hearing rumors occasionally about it, but like the Steam, just like the wind was taken from the sales of HoloLens. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a good idea is the thing. But
it was a really good idea. It was a really good idea.
That's the thing with Microsoft. They boot people out and they cancel things. They are very mercenary in that regard. Sony, on the other hand, a game like The Last Guardian, where it was another one, it wouldn't run on the PS3. They had to get it to a system that could actually run it. They had massive problems with that game. But instead of just canceling it, they let them do it. It was a fan
service game, yeah. I remember people were making fun of the fact, it's not getting high sales numbers. I'm like, yeah, but you don't get it. That game's not about high sales numbers. It was about fortifying their fans and their user base to say, hey, we come through with our promises. Now, it was also to have that amazing technical achievement of an interactive companion in a video game. People are going to steal the shit out of that idea because now somebody figured out how to do it. Yeah.
That's what it is. It's that little glimpse in a clip reel that PlayStation, I'm sure Trico will be all through PlayStation sizzle reels at E3 this year because it's visually stunning. And there are intangible benefits to having that shiny in a reel, because people still haven't bought a PS4 and they're like, well, what can I do on it? Oh, wow, that's a lot of different experiences. They may never buy the game, but it still affected their decision to put that box in their living room. And that kind of marketing doesn't get enough. It's very expensive to develop a big long game like that for that, 4-second flash, but it is very effective.
Yes, it is very effective.
Yeah.
And we'll end with this. My thing is with the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio is if Microsoft kind of slowly makes the Scorpio their next gen system, where they're like, where if they go to developers, look, Xbox One holding you back, don't make the game for the Xbox One, just make it for the Scorpio. Sony may have to do the same thing. I really don't think they're going to come out. There's these rumors, they're coming out with the PS5 next year. No, they're not going to do that. If they do that, it's the stupidest move they've ever made. Next to how they launched the PS3 or alongside. What I think may happen is Sony may have to do their backs being against the wall. Like if developers go to them, look, we made this game for the Scorpio. Mm-hmm. Because we couldn't make it for the Xbox One, and Microsoft's letting us do it. We want to make the game for the Pro, which does have enough power to get it done. It may not be as powerful as the Scorpio, but we can't get the game to run on the PS4. We need that same blessing from you, where we could not be, because that's the contract that the developers have, is the game has to be for PS4 Pro and PS4 now. We can't get it. We can't get the multiplayer to work right on the PS4. We have to make it for the Pro only. I think Sony at that point may have to have to cave and say, fine, just make it for the Pro.
A few things will have to happen before they do that. One is they have to be able to expect at least 5 million in sales on Scorpio for them to sacrifice that. What is it up to? Something like 42 million units on the PS3?
I say that part of my videos. I forgot to say it. Yeah, if they're a developer will have to go to them and say, look, we pretty much can guarantee this game's going to sell like 10 million units on pros. Okay. Yeah. And same with Scorpio. It's going to be a huge seller. We assure you. That's what I'm saying. You'll see it at that point, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah. But the other thing that's going to have to happen for these next gen graphics to take off is ultra high def TV sales are going to have to crack 50% of the market. They're still pretty flat. And it really surprises me that people are not embracing 4K quicker. I think that's why all the talk of 8K really disappeared, because people aren't going out and gobbling up those 4K TVs the way they did 1080p. So they still have this lag in market penetration for the technology they're selling. And I don't know why Microsoft just doesn't embrace Windows 10 gaming, make Xbox their software distribution brand on Windows 10. There's no compelling reason for Xbox to have a separate gaming machine anymore. Windows 10 is, because it's so close to Windows 7, Windows 10 is actually pretty good for gaming. I know that's heresy to say, hey, I got one in after you went with Polygon and EA. Yeah, I'm defending Windows 10. There are things about it that make gaming easier, make gaming configuration, make getting the games to launch quickly a lot easier. And I know why it's their corporate structure and all this stuff, but in terms of what makes sense, I don't know why. They're trying to split the focus with this cross-play technology, which, hey, I really like that I get a Windows, an Xbox review copy and I can play it on PC. That makes me super happy. However, why aren't they pushing their PC gaming more? Like, why isn't it just the equivalent, like I said before, of the Steam machine? That's weird to me.
I think maybe that might be because the fact that they would be tough to go up against Valve in terms of becoming like a distribution for their games.
I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
I think they know that it would just be an uphill battle. Not saying that it would be impossible to win, but it would be tough as shit. And I think what'll happen, one thing I could say I'm seeing with 4K TVs, I know we've talked about it before, is they're becoming a hell of a lot cheaper. And I think this year may be the 4K cherry pop year. It kind of happened last year with the holiday season where you had Black Friday where you could get they had a $300 4K Toshiba TV, which, it's not amazing, but it was true for, it was 3840 by 2160. I think this may be the year and the year after where you finally see where people are like, okay, 4K TVs are so damn cheap. Why the hell would I get a 1080p TV when for $50 more you get 4K? So how
much was that Toshiba machine?
$299. $299 for a 40-inch, 42-inch 4K TV. You see what I'm saying?
Can you see 4K in 42 inches though? Yeah, I guess that's right on the border.
But I'm saying is that they're getting affordable, and that's a large enough.
It's amazing how much cheaper TVs are down there. Yeah. Man,
Oh yeah, you guys get buried all the time up there. I forgot about that. Really?
Yeah, good. Like our 1080 sets are still around that price. And so like 4K is still, because I keep looking, because I want a smaller 4K TV just to replace my 720p thing in the dining room. It doesn't have to be great, but they're still ridiculous up here.
You guys get nailed up there, man. It's so great. But, in general, 4K is becoming cheaper. And if that happens over the next couple of years, then I think and if the developers go to them saying, if they get demand from developers saying, okay, we have this game, we can pretty much assure you it's going to sell 6 to 10 million units. We need the extra horsepower on the Pro and the Scorpio. And more people are buying 4K TVs because they're cheaper. Then you may see them, totally abandon that clause of, oh yeah, it needs to come out for the One and the regular PS4. So, we'll have to see, but it's just funny how Microsoft is totally bailing now, unofficially, there has to be parity in between the old consoles and the new ones.
It's going to be an interesting press conference at E3 this year. Sorry, media briefing. They don't call them press conferences anymore, but it's going to be interesting because they are going to have to shit or get off the pot.
Yes.
On this stuff.
Because they're going to have to find a way to show that here is why you're buying a Scorpio, and that's going to be tough to show when everyone's going to be watching E3 through a heavily compressed 1080p stream. Yeah. When they're trying to sell them on 4K, with HDR. So it's going to that's been their problem in previous years, is their technology that they show looks like shit in streams. It's always too dark. And happened with the Pro too. Yeah, the Pro, they were like, you had Mark Cerny, saying with his bowl cut, saying, HDR and we're up to 4K. They never straight up said 4K because the PS4 Pro, I would say 60 to 70% of the games are not in 4K, and that may be a conservative number. But they were trying to show HDR and upscaling and checkerboard rendering, and everyone's like, yeah, dude, I'm watching this through a heavily compressed shit stream right now. I don't see the difference.
Yeah.
So that's where it's going to be. It's going to be tough this year, man. It's going to be tough for them to, it's going to be interesting. I hope that they have a lot of exclusives behind the Scorpio that's going to sell people, because if they just try to show you like things that you can't see, people are going to be like, yeah, I'm just keeping my Xbox One.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to drop something really cool, and like I'm talking a blast from the past, like an Alan Wake sequel or something like that. They are gonna have to get people excited, and I'm trying to think of another Xbox franchise that could do that.
Even though I'm going to get one anyway because I'm a nerd and this is kind of what I do for a living. What would get me to buy one? Microsoft's Halo 3 Anniversary Edition. Remastered for 4K from the ground up. Vanilla, though. Just give me all the DLC you had for Halo 3. Don't add any other stupid-ass multiplayer features on. Make it like the 2007 version, just upgraded for the Scorpio. And I'm telling you, if I will buy it for that, 1 million other people will too. More than 5 million other people will too. I'm telling you.
Know what? You're probably right, because people know what it is. And they're like, oh yeah, that game was fun. They know what they're getting.
Still, some of the Halo 3 is still some of the best multiplayer for Halo anyway, or in multiplayer, online multiplayer, period. You give me that vanilla game with just totally upgraded to make it look pretty, I'm done. I'm sold.
And enhanced frame rates.
And a 60 FPS, yes. 60 FPS, just update the visuals, just give me all the DLC and keep it vanilla, and you're good. Don't add any of the 343 shit in there like they did with the Master Chief Collection. And,
they fucked that franchise up so badly, and I didn't want to say that, but they really did get away from the core of it.
I didn't like Halo 5. I
didn't even play it.
I didn't like Halo 5. Everyone's like, oh, Halo 4 is the best Halo ever. I'm like, no, it's not. I tried it. I don't like it.
Another one, there are things I liked about it, there are things I didn't like, but yeah, there was something flat about it.
And I just didn't enjoy this. I tried multiple times to play Halo 4. I just couldn't get into it. But anyway, I think this is a pretty healthy episode 8 we got going on here. I am Rich, and this is Liana. We are actually going to sign out. We'll be back, guys, with episode 9. And hopefully I don't light myself on fire or fall into a dumpster, and we'll get it out on a timely basis. So hope you enjoyed this.
You may become a dumpster fire.
I don't know, man. I was throwing old ass air conditioners in there, and I almost killed myself in the process.
Record this, Rich. This is content. I have to see this now.
We had to put because there were old. Some of them worked. We actually had them all covered up, but for some reason, because our winter was so all over the place, all the air conditioners died. So we had these air conditioners from our rooms out on the deck that were covered. Usually they were safe because they were totally covered up, but they weren't. So all of them died. So we had to throw them over the deck onto a tarp, and it was just, they shattered, and it was, yeah. Anyway. All right.
That sounds awesome.
So hope you enjoyed this episode, and be grateful that I'm still alive. And we will, and no bees this week actually went after me too. Remember the bee from the other couple weeks ago?
No bees. Woohoo.
And that thing actually went upstairs too, and I actually had to swat it with a shoe, and it was made of Teflon and wouldn't die. So have a good one. I'm alive. I'll hopefully be alive next week, and Liana and I will see you in about 7 days, guys. Have a good one.